Hello, this is Group 8 presenting on The Joys of Motherhood by Buchi and Emecheta. And to begin with, we're just going to do a brief recap on our unit, West African Prose. So prose is a written form that is alien to us as Africans, because as we all know, like as Africans, our history, we learn from it through our oral traditions, and we learn about our history passed on from generation to generation. And even with the author of this book that we're analyzing, she mentions that as a young girl growing up, she used to get a lot of stories from her grandmother, and that gave her a very firm foundation onto which she later became an author and gave her a lot of inspiration to write stories. So, through the novel, yes, we get to understand that time and space has been brought together, thus reinforcing our efforts to recover our identity, or our identity as Africans, or our Africanness, which has been plotted for the longest time by the Europeans. So the region of West Africa comprises of 16 countries formed by European powers, of course, and each of them, just like any other African country, has a history that shapes it, the trajectory that it followed to reach wherever it is right now. And so the idea of a nation, however, it is socially constructed, as these boundaries that separate countries are abstract. So it is the post-colonial novel that brings us to the true meaning of a nation. And the slippages and the idea of a nation is what describes Africa. So this is what makes every African, wherever they may be, home or abroad, to find that way to identify themselves in a story from an African country that may not be necessarily theirs. So Nigeria, is one of the African countries, has quite a profound history, owing to the fact that it is made up of a mosaic of cultures, and its stories definitely resonate with Africa. It has, gone through the most, to say the least, just like many other African countries that I will not mention, but I bet we know, like other countries in Africa, whatever they have gone through to become wherever they are right now. We're talking about civil wars, we're talking about coups, and not to forget the unjust thing that happened to us, the colonialism, how the Europeans came and enslaved us and took our land, and all those things that happened during that period. So Buchi Emecheta, straight and forward. She's a Nigerian author whose novel, The Joys of Motherhood, is her Magnum Opus, right? Magnum Opus is the best, it means it's the best of her kind. Like, of all her books, The Joys of Motherhood is the best, and is the one that many people know and associate with her. And each time you mention her name, the first book that pops in your mind is Buchi, is The Joys of Motherhood, sorry. And this book, it is set in the colonial epoch, and it thus gives us a snippet of the experiences of the Nigerians under colonial rule. And the better part of the novel traces back to the period towards the end of the colonial rule, that is like in the 1950s, because they got the independence in 1960. So the part leading to the end of colonial rule, we also given an idea of how time was at that particular time. So also the author manages to do time travels, which she takes us back to how life was in the pre-colonial period, describing how life was for the Igbo people before the white men came, and thus we are able to understand the communal past that existed before, that was different from how life began to be experienced in the colonial period, and even right now where we're living in the post-colonial period. So the communal past, it's something that we're really supposed to identify ourselves with. We're supposed to know it, just like straight back to our Caribbean literature. We understand from the Barbadian poet Kamau Braithwaite, in his poem The Visibility Trigger, he tries to explain how everything in Africa before the European came, everything in Africa was circular, everything was different. The cycle of life, the history, the hearts, everything about them was secular until the European man came and established his new ideas. So in this paper, we are going to shed light on the relevance of the status of motherhood. In order to do this, we are going to blend other essential topics that are very much associated with motherhood, like the relationship between parents, the parental responsibilities, duties of children, expectation of parenthood, identity, dignity as a woman, childlessness, and the vagaries of living in a polygamous home. And into the bargain, we are going to point out the salient issue of colonialism that disrupted Africa and its implication to our present life, the status of African traditions, and thereby the tension between traditions and modernity. Issues of patriarchy, feminism, kinship, and family will also be discussed. So, motherhood, as we all know, is a state of being a mother. So, universally, it's assumed to be all joyous and satisfactory. So, society has made it so clear that being a mother is the epitome of a woman's life. So, you're not a complete woman until the time you become a mother, which is quite enslaving. Personally, I think it's quite enslaving to the African woman. And it is an experience, like I said, it's an experience that every single African woman, sometimes it might be subtle, but you can just know it, as you grow up, like when you're of age, everybody will be asking, where is her child? When you're married, they'll asking, where is your child? If you're barren, if you're childless, who want to you? So we get to understand that the African mother is the most honored female character in African creative writing. We can even see that from male African writers. For example, Chinua Achebe is also from Nigeria. He, in his book Things Fall Apart, he has depicted the mother as a paragon of love, strength, and affection. And that really makes us understand the position where an African mother is. She's up there and she's looked up as the sign of strength and the sign of love and the sign of affection. And we even have this famous Yoruba proverb that I got to learn from another Nigerian author, Ayobami Adebayo, in her book Stay With Me. There's a mention of a Yoruba proverb that goes, there's no God like a mother. So, a mother has been epitomized. She's like a god. There's no God like a mother. So we know from this we get to understand that a mother has been greatly eulogized, and this bit for the most part reflects on African society's conventions because they regard women for their productive abilities. With Chinua, as I've already mentioned, he holds the African mother as a supreme symbol. He points out that a man will find refuge in his motherland when there is misfortune and sorrow. He therefore establishes the mother image as a representation of power and respect. So to counter that, Buchi has totally broken away from the African mores on who a mother is. Through her, we fail to see these glorifying images of a mother. Instead, we see the flaws in motherhood. We see the tears, we see the pain, the turmoil, the perfect opposite of joys. She records the troubled and chaotic moments in a mother's life. She brings up the issue that is not so commonly talked about. It is there with us, but we never talk about it. We rarely talk about it. The struggles of childlessness, the struggle of a childless woman, how she struggles with infertility, as well as the mothers who worry about their children. So the novel is an exploration also of the tension between traditional life and modernity. So, the traditional life, which was the secular life, and this new spherical life, the modern life by the Europeans. So that struggle, that tension, we get to witness to the protagonist, Nuego, who is trying so very well to fit into this new Nigeria. She's from Ibuza. She goes to Lagos, and she's now trying to fit in Lagos, city life. She's trying her best to fit into this modern life. Her old secure world gives way to the new. She becomes fully conscious of the path that her life has taken. So with that also, we get to see the economic, the socio-political, and cultural aspects, how they are contradictory to the ones that we were used to seeing before. So the social the economic, the social, political, and cultural aspects that we get to see in this book, The Joys of Motherhood, they are contradictory to the ones that we get to see in other works of her contemporaries, like Achebe Chinua and Wapa Flora. We get to get a different picture of how these tenets, the economic, social, political, and cultural, are. So with her, we get to understand this largely because of the turning tides in this new era. So definitely when Achebe and Flora Nwapa were writing their books, whichever book that they were writing at a certain period that is more or less the same period as Buchi Emecheta. But Buchi, she kind of does a twist because through her, we are able to see something that was in those books, yes, but with her we get to see it in a different way. She does it in her own special way. So with Buchi, economically, we can see that the colonial space has brought with it structural inequalities and cruelties. We can see that this neoliberal capitalism that is practiced, where her husband is working as a washerman for a white couple, the Mias, and also she makes a living by selling at the market. So we can see that the old communal system has been replaced with a capitalist system where everyone is out there for themselves and trying their best to do what? To scrape together a living as an individual, and not anymore as a community like it used to be before. So socially also, the old structure of family and kinship has been broken, and there's nothing there to replace it. It's over and done with. The white people have done their bits. So before, parents, they were taken good care of by their children. They would they expected the children. It was natural that in the long run, when the parents are old, the children take care of them in their old age, and that is the ultimate joy of motherhood. But this system has broken it. This new system has broken it. This modern system has broken it. This spherical system has broken it. So the new educational opportunities for African males abroad can also be seen. That is now a new social awakening. There's education opportunities for African males abroad. So though imagined to be the ultimate eradication of poverty, if somebody says, oh, somebody's going abroad, everybody will be like, okay, so their family is going to be rich now, he's going to be sending dollars from the US. When somebody travels abroad, that is the first thing that pops into the mind of those who hear about the story. They think that it's all gold, people swimming in gold, people swimming in silver, everything is beautiful and everything is money over there abroad. But we get to see the contrary, because Nwego's son, Shia travels to the US to study, but her social status hardly changes. Shia doesn't even write to him, even though he goes to America, and people believe he's going there to have a better life and to upgrade his family. So the colonial state, despite initiating all of this a social awakening, which was different from the old one, which we get to understand there was a lot of family ties and kinship and children reciprocating their care and love that was given to them by their parents. Now that the parents are old, we get to see that this colonial state, they don't even care to provide a social safety net in the forms of proper health care, a home for the aged, financial assistance, or anything that these old people can depend on. So you see, Nwego, our protagonist, she gets to suffer in the hands of these modern system that has changed the social life. And as the country moves ahead towards independence, we can see that things are just getting worse. Wherever Nigeria was, and wherever it is heading towards, we can see like it's now moving forward to the 1950s, close to independence in 1960. But we see it's like things are just getting worse. People are moving from the village, they're going to the city. But what are they going to do in the city? They're going to work for white people. They're trying to make a living. They are selling things in the market, but everything is just messed up. The new social system is just so different from how it was before. So they're heading on towards independence, but they're like heading ahead, but almost everything is broken behind them. So how are they even going to focus once they're independent? And how is life going to be there? How is life going to be out there? Like, how are they going to try to unravel all of these things? And also politically, we can see that there's rapid urbanization, which has contributed to a lot of new concepts of justice. We can see a long time ago, in the Igbo culture, or generally most African traditions, Justice was so different from how it is with these Europeans and their new system. So in the Igbo culture, before we can say that when somebody did something wrong, they were punished, like being banished from the village. Then they go and live somewhere else for a couple of years, and then that's how they roll. But in this new Nigeria, there's a new concept of justice. So Nigeria is now changing. We can see that it is now, we can see that different from Ibuza. There's a new thing applied here. We can see that when when Naife attacks Aremu's father, the butcher, he is tried and imprisoned, and he was supposed to go to prison for 5 years, except for that little favor that the lawyer did, that big favor that the lawyer did for them. He changed it to just be 3 months, but he was going to go into hiding so that the family of the person who was attacked doesn't get to hear about it. So we can see that even through his incarceration, he loses a great part of his gratuity for his crime. So that with that, we get to understand that this is a new political system where when you do whatever you do, you're on the wrong side of the law, you get to be punished through incarceration, through being taken to prison, and then repercussions come with it. Repercussions of what? Your gratuity, a part of it is taken, stuff like that. And another issue that comes up politically, we understand that, that there is also some messed up system, some corruption, because we can see what the lawyer did for him. He was supposed to serve 5 years, but the lawyer did whatever he had to do, and he has 3 months but has to go into hiding. So that is something that is new and is coming with these changes. So Buchi also does not dwell on the perfections of the mother. She describes the mother in a variety of situations, her flaws and all of that. She sacrifices, she fights with her husband for the welfare of her children. She protects her children from their father's wrath. She corrects them, and her suffering also because of their absence. Revolts against traditional customs and the needs of the children. So just like Flora Nopa in Efuru, Buchi focuses on the everyday woman's experience, her life in both positive and negative aspects. Okay, so about the title. The title of the book, it's very interesting to note that in Flora Nwapa's book, a book written 13 years earlier, Efuru, there was a question posed. And in that question, the question was rather, why the women worship the deity despite her never achieving the joys of motherhood. So my group and I, we drew a close relationship between that question and the events at the end of Buchi's novel. At the end of Buchi's novel, what happens? She dies, and then the children set up that grand funeral, and then in the long run they build a shrine for her so that children may later on come and worship and ask her for her to give them children, but she never answers those prayers. So kind of connected with the Furu, the deity that is worshipped despite her never having achieved the joys of motherhood. So the title, The Joys of Motherhood, is ironical. Point to note, it's ironical, ironical. So the protagonist ends up not enjoying the care of the children she dedicated her entire life to. She had no time for friends and anything that was aside from her children. She had longed for a child so much during her days of infertility, so that when she finally got a child, she knew all would now be okay, and she would find someone to call her mother. Children give joy, yes, but in this scenario, the myth has been demolished. The parent joy has culminated into misery. That's a clear indication that grass is not always green on the other side.